Hello and welcome to Your Vote Counts. I'm Amy Vandegrift from the League of Women Voters, bringing you this public informational voter service program. These 2020 general election interviews are made possible through Capital Community Media via remote technology and in collaboration with the League of Women Voters of Oregon and Marion County and Polk County. For these races, all candidates were invited. Candidates did not receive the questions developed by the League of Women Voters, AAUW, and Neighborhood Association ahead of time. The candidates were asked to prepare a 3-minute statement telling about themselves, their qualifications, and their vision for the office if elected. I would like now to ask candidate Ashley Carson Cottingham, who is running for the office of Marion County Commissioner, Position 3, to share her opening remarks.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy. Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Carson Cottingham, and I am running for Marion County Commissioner Seat 3. From the time I can remember, I've been engaged in helping people and serving in the communities in which I've lived. As a small child of about 7 or 8, I delivered Meals on Wheels with my grandparents to homebound seniors in Central Oregon. I attended the University of Oregon, where I got my bachelor's degree, and Vermont Law School, where I graduated with a JD. While in law school, I volunteered on a domestic violence hotline, helping women escape very scary situations, sometimes in the middle of the night. I've always had a soft spot for seniors, and I moved to Washington, D.C. to fight for the first ever elder justice law in the early 2000s. While there, I had the great opportunity to run a national nonprofit advocacy organization called the Older Women's League. We fought for economic justice for older women, including protecting Social Security. I went on to work for 2 different U.S. senators as committee staff for the U.S. Senate Special Committee on Aging and then the Subcommittee on Primary Health and Aging. In these committees, we highlighted issues such as poverty leading to shorter lifespans, America's dental crisis, and the need to increase funding for Meals on Wheels nationwide. Since moving back to Oregon and becoming a mom of 2 young kiddos, I've served as the director for the Office of Aging and Disabilities for the state, and we had a biennial budget of over $3.4 billion, as well as staff of 1,400 statewide. Now, I'm the agency deputy director for Oregon's Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Right now in Marion County, we have older adults, people with disabilities, immigrants, families struggling with poverty and trying to homeschool their children in a pandemic, people experiencing violence, veterans with brain injuries, and those struggling with social isolation and mental illness. All of these people deserve a life of safety, independence, and good healthcare outcomes. We need to elect leaders here in our county who believe that facts and science matter, who follow widely recognized public health practices, who address our homelessness crisis, and who believe systemic and structural racism is real and they want to address it. Unfortunately, the opposite is what we have with our current Board of Commissioners. I am the candidate in this race with solid government experience, have managed billion-dollar public budgets, and who has strong relationships with local elected officials, Oregon state legislators, and members of our federal delegation. I will lead us through this difficult time and ensure that everyone in our county is heard and has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have some questions for you. Due to the recent crisis reveal any major gaps in the county's emergency services? If so, how will you address them?
Yes, it's unfortunate that we are in the midst of 2 very serious crises in our county. and state as well. COVID-19 has shown us that our public health infrastructure is not cut out to handle a global pandemic. While I think the Marion County Public Health Department has tried their very best, we need to invest in more resources in our county to ensure that we can get through COVID-19, that we can keep people healthy, and we can move past it. I know in my day job, I work, as in the office of the long-term care ombudsman, and we have seen a huge impact to the population, both working and living in our licensed long-term care. And as a result, many of the 92 fatalities we've had in our county have happened in long-term care, which is just devastating. The pandemic has also had disproportionate impact on our communities of color. And we need to do better. We need to do better with outreach, education. We need things in multiple languages. And we need to make sure that people are protected from this horrible virus spreading further. So I do think there are gaps, and I think we can address those gaps by better planning and better resourcing of that division of our county. I think with the wildfires, everything is fairly new. And it has been just so absolutely devastating for so many in our community. I think we learned today that over 600 structures were lost in the recent fires up the canyon. And it's going to take a lot of effort to rebuild. I know that people in those communities want government to work fast so that they can get back to their lives. But that's going to take a lot of coordination at the local, the county, the state, and the federal level. With FEMA jumping in, I know people are set up to receive some assistance, but it's going to be hard, and we need someone that's ready to work across all those layers of government to get people what they need and get their most basic needs met. I think people received notice too late and sometimes in the up the canyon, and that was devastating. And I'm sure we'll learn more as the weeks go on. Nobody wants to see loss of life in such a horrible natural disaster. And so I think we have to do better because one life lost is too many for our county.
Considering the increased need for communication in services such as online education, remote healthcare, and access to county services, what can Marion County do to make technology more accessible in rural areas?
I think the first thing that we have to do is recognize that so many in our rural parts of our county don't even have access to broadband internet. So they wouldn't be able to do an interview like I'm getting to do with you, that I have the privilege of doing with you right now. Their children aren't able to access their online learning because we don't have access to broadband internet in some of the communities. So I think the county can really be a leader in ensuring that we have broadband across the county in record time. This is not a new issue, yet I do not think enough attention has gone into fixing this problem for the more rural parts of our county. And I believe that's because corporate interests that do broadband internet don't really have interest in taking broadband out to rural communities who've been impoverished. But I think government does have a role to play in making sure that people can work remotely across our county and that our children can receive the best education possible during a global pandemic. I also think that there's a lot of modernization that the county could do as far as communications in general. So I think that it's disappointing that the Board of Commissioners continues to meet in person. I've seen so many smaller governments be able to pivot to be online and to demonstrate good public health practices during a crisis. And so I hope to see when I'm elected, a rapid modernization of all of the communications channels and more real-time information coming out from the county.
Okay. Adequate maintenance of city and county roads can be an issue. What are some of the short and long-term strategies you want to see done to address transportation issues?
That's a good question. I think that The county, I believe, for this year has something like $18 million going into roads and bridge infrastructure construction type projects. And so that seems like a pretty big investment. I think we have to make sure that all the local governments are working well with the county government. We're going to have to prioritize our dollars. I think we're looking at an economic downturn. And so, I think we're going to have to get creative with those dollars. I mean, obviously, we want to prioritize people being able to get to school when schools can reopen, people being able to work. I think we should maximize any sort of federal infrastructure grant opportunities that we are eligible to apply for to make sure that people can get around in our county. That said, I think we need to expand our public transportation options across the county. So to me, I live in downtown Salem, so I have a lot of options. It does not feel when you're driving across our county that people have a lot of really excellent transportation options to get them to and from jobs. And so I think we need to have a county-wide strategy for transportation to ensure that people can get where they need to go, especially with these recent crises.
Okay. Salem City Council is working on a climate action plan to reduce greenhouse gases. What actions would you propose for Marion County to reduce greenhouse gases and meet state goals?
So I would really like to see the county do something similar, put together a comprehensive climate action plan. That hasn't been discussed, I don't believe, at the county level because we've had one party in charge of our county commission for over 40 years, and much of that party doesn't believe that climate change is real. And so I think it starts by having a robust discussion with a large number of stakeholder organizations and coming up with a comprehensive plan. Now, things aren't going to change on a dime. We have a large county. We don't want to see lost jobs. And so we would need to, I think, look at maybe a 10-year strategic plan to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and other things that are causing really horrible emissions. Right now we have an incinerator in our county, which is how we do a lot of our waste management. So part of that plan, and this has been a very controversial topic across our county, would include looking at the incinerator and looking at the emissions and looking at other health impacts or environmental impacts related to our use of an incinerator and seeing what we could do to potentially reduce some of those carbon emissions and also transition to something potentially less dangerous. And we don't really know how dangerous it is because we haven't done the proper studies to know what the soil looks like around the incinerator and what the true health impacts are. So I think coming up with a comprehensive plan that we can follow over a 10-year period would really go a long way for our county. I think something small and immediate we could do in county government is transition all of our fleet vehicles, which is not a huge number, but transition those to electric or hybrid vehicles right away, or each time we need a replacement vehicle. I think would be something small that we could do too.
Okay. You sort of touched on my next question. Perhaps you want to expand on it. Otherwise, we can go on to the next one. The county is looking at alternatives to burning garbage at the Covanta Marion incinerator. Are there any proposals or plans that you have that you would like to express?
Yeah, I can just expand on what I started to say, which is that I think there's not enough information. I know that some groups have done papers on their opinions around the incinerator. I know that most of the elected officials in our area have been very much in favor of the contract with Covanta. My interest is really in understanding. I think that the Covanta is on the list for some of the state agencies or one of the state agencies to look into the true emissions levels and the toxicity of what comes out of the stacks of the incinerator. I want to see what that data says. And I would push and advocate that we do those types of measurements at different times based on what we're burning at that particular moment. So I think right now when the levels are measured, they do one reading and it may be at a random time. And so we don't know. We don't know if burning medical waste is more toxic than burning regular garbage, that we put out on the curbside. So I really want some data that shows what the levels are when you're burning different types of waste. I also would like some ground soil studies. I want to know what the soil looks like and what's in the soil, and is it toxic to the people that live around the incinerator and people, downstream and downwind from the incinerator. And then based on that data, we can come up with solutions. Perhaps we then choose to wind down our reliance on the incinerator, or perhaps we pivot to what types of things can still be burned safely in the incinerator. My approach in general in leadership would be to never make a decision in a silo. I am the type of person that wants to reach out, talk to all of the people who have any interest in a topic, get the information, review the facts, and come up with a solution that maybe not everybody is happy with, but you've come up with a solution that people can live with and you are meeting your goals over time.
Okay. What is your assessment of the School Resource Officer program in the Salem-Keizer schools? Do you agree that it should be ended? Why or why not?
So this has been a very hot topic in our area, as my opponent is on the school board right now. So I have submitted testimony in favor of reducing reliance on school resource officers in the Salem-Keizer public schools. I have listened to the testimony of many, many students and their families who have come forth to express what they have experienced as far as racism and discrimination and the furtherance of the school to prison pipeline. And I found it extremely compelling. And I believe that we need to make sure that we are listening to our youth and that we pivot away from the use of school resource officers. So I know that sometimes things can't happen overnight. If there are current contracts that we're in the middle of, we need to find a way to wind those down. I'd really like to see the investment, which is a rather large one in school resource officers, pivot to investment in guidance counselors, mental health supports, and other things that the youth are asking us for. They are asking the adults to intervene because they don't feel safe. And I think that's our job as parents and leaders in our community. The data shows that school resource officers aren't effective, and they cause trauma for students of color, students with disabilities. So I really believe that we should turn away from the use of school resource officers, and we should reinvest that money into critical services that students need in the public schools.
Okay, I have time for just one more brief question, and so make sure that you're sort of concise on it. Assuming that there will be cuts in revenue and increase in needs, what are your financial priorities for Marion County? That's a big question, but tackle it quickly.
Right. Yes, I do expect we will have cuts in revenue, and that's a hard position for a leader to be in. But what I'll say is that I have been in that position before, running a larger program than the county budget in its entirety. And what my priority will be is focusing on people. And we need to rebuild the communities that have lost everything up the canyon, and we need to get through this pandemic. We need to make sure people are healthy and safe and that kids can get back to school, that our small businesses can reopen, and that people get back to work. I think those are the priorities, and other things will have to take a back seat when we're looking at a reduced budget.
Okay. Thank you, candidate Ashley Carson Cottingham, for our interview today and for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate Capital Community Media doing these interviews, and the League of Women Voters for putting so much time and energy into offering this service to candidates. And I appreciate your time today, Amy. Thank you. I do have a website for those that are interested. It's Ashley, ASHLEY, fororegon.com. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We want to thank Capital Community Media for their time and expertise in creating this program. and for making it available across the state through YouTube and Vote 411. Thank you to the Leagues of Women Voter Leagues, the American Association of University Women, and the Salem City Club for being interviewers and suggesting questions. And thank you to the public for watching Your Vote Counts in order to become a more informed voter. For voter information, including dates, registration, candidates for state and local areas, and ballot measure information, please go online to vote411.org. You have until October 13th to register to vote, with the ballots being mailed to you beginning October 14th. November 3rd is the general election day. Please remember that postmarks do not count. All ballots must be returned on or before November 3rd. Elections do matter. It makes a difference, so remember to vote, because your vote counts.